Hey guys, welcome back to Boots and Bounty Homestead. We're doing some more pantry meals this week, and we're going to start off with just a simple vegetable beef soup. And here you see I have thawed out some ground venison with our beef fat that we make every year when Emma goes hunting for us. And I'm just browning up that meat, making some cornbread back there in the back. That is about a cup and a half of einkorn flour, and then a cup and a quarter of cornmeal. And then I'm going to add about a quarter cup of sugar and about a teaspoon of baking powder. Get all that mixed together. Make sure my meat is not sticking as I am browning it. To the cornbread, we're going to add about a half a cup of milk, about 2 tablespoons of your choice of oil, and then a farm fresh egg. Go ahead and preheat the oven to about 400. And here comes all of our pantry goodies. So first we're going to add to the meat 2 quarts of tomato juice. Now you can pour that extra water off the top if you want and save it as a vegetable stock. It is great for cooking rice and things in later. But I'm going to go ahead and add it to our soup just to make it more volume for us to eat. Get all that stirred up, and then to it we're also going to add in some green beans, which I am going to drain ours off. You can save that that water as well and use as vegetable stock if you would like. So I'm putting in a quart of green beans and then some home canned white potatoes. Now I'm going to leave the juice in this because that white substance in the bottom is the starch that is actually going to help the soup to thicken up later as it cooks. So I'm adding all of that to the soup. Also to the soup, we're going to add in some home canned carrots. Now the water looks a different color because these are actually rainbow carrots. And I did go ahead and drain that water off because it can be a little sweet. And if you want a sweet soup, you can just leave it in there. I've got some extra vegetables as those bell peppers you've seen there and some leftover corn from another meal. And those are stewed potatoes that actually ended up being almost mashed potatoes. So we're just going to add all of those extra ingredients in there to get the refrigerator cleaned out and make us a fresh meal of vegetable soup. Now we are going to eat on this for a couple of days, so that's why I'm making so much. And if there's any extra, this can be pressure canned and put back on the shelf. So to finish up the cornmeal or the cornbread, I'm going to go ahead and add in some water just to get it the right consistency. And then I'm going to find my cast iron skillet that I make my cornbread in and put a little bit of bacon lard in the bottom of it. And then once I have that in there, I'm going to stick it back in the oven to go ahead and preheat with the oven, because you want your cast iron hot when you put that batter in there so it makes a nice crispy edge and it doesn't stick. So once it's preheated, I go ahead and pull it back out. Now it's just enough lard just to coat the bottom a little bit, and I put oil and egg in my cornmeal batter, but you can actually put that lard, if you put about a quarter cup in that skillet, you can go ahead and pour that into your batter and then mix it up, and that'll give you that moisture that you need in your cornbread instead of adding the oil. So I'm just getting it spread out here. Make sure I get every bit of morsel off that spoon. Once the oven is preheated, we're going to go ahead and put it in the oven and let it bake until it is lightly browned around the outside. And with einkorn, it's going to tend to be a hair darker. There's our vegetable soup once it cooked down some. We got it all served up. And there's the cornbread once it was done. So the next day, I had my hand at trying out an einkorn bread recipe that I'm creating myself. So that was it after I got it all poured into our Pullman loaf pans and getting it in the oven to bake. And that's what it looks like when I took it out. I do have to make some little tweaks to it, so I'm going to continue to work on that. So we are moving on now to another meal where I'm actually making my Einkorn noodles on my lunch break. And in my food processor, you have to excuse the duct tape, but I added in 2 cups of einkorn flour and 2 eggs, and then about a teaspoon of salt, and I'm getting that all mixed together. And I'm adding in a tablespoon of water at a time, and I am pulsing that as I add it because I need to see where my water flour consistency is. And you can watch it change as I add the water in, and once it starts to form a ball, then that means it is ready. Now with einkorn flour, it's going to continue to absorb that flour once you let it rest for about 10 minutes. So you want to make sure that it's just a little more wet than the usual all-purpose flour. So you'll see it starting to form a ball here in just a second. There it goes. And then I know that it is ready. So the only thing I got left in the bottom are just a few crumbs, and I'm going to go ahead and pour this out and get it kneaded in. So you see it's real sticky. It sticks together, but not on your hands. And I do tend to not make mine quite as wet because all in all, I'm going to let this dehydrate here in just a few hours. So here I am getting my somewhat ball of dough out of the food processor, and I'm going to knead in all of those crumbs that were in the bottom of the food processor and form it into a ball and let it rest for about 10 minutes. Now if it's too sticky where it sticks to your hands or to your countertop, go ahead and put some flour down and use this time to knead in that extra flour, and then let it rest for 10 minutes and then try it again to see kind of where it's at once it has rested to finish absorbing some more of that water. I'm getting all cleaned up here. There's the dough, and I'm going to let it sit on the counter for about 10 minutes. For Christmas, I've got a new toy, which is my KitchenAid attachment. You guys seen a few weeks ago. So I'm going to use it in this recipe for the first time. And it took a little practice getting used to, but I finally figured it out. And this is much like a manual noodle pasta roller, except that instead of starting on the big numbers and going down as you see on like a pasta mux, on the usual manual ones, you start on a big number and go down. On this one, you actually start with 1 and go up. So the first little batch I did ran through real quick. It was not good. So just make sure as you're making these noodles, you are folding it over, running it through twice on each number. And I got down to about 3 on this and decided to stop there. It was at the thickness that I wanted for some like fettuccine noodles. And then I'm just dividing them up there, putting my other attachment on there for the fettuccine and getting that ran through. Now in my bowl, I put a little bit of extra flour because you don't want your noodles to stick together. Giving them a little toss. And then once I got all of that batch done, I laid down a towel on my cookie sheet. And then we're just spreading them out because you don't want them to sit in on top of each other because I did probably 4 batches here. You want them all spread out so they don't stick together. Now I'm actually going to let mine sit out. As you see here, it's now nighttime. I let it sit out for about 5 or 6 hours, and I'm going to go ahead and cook them now for supper. And I'm starting to boil the water and add about a teaspoon of salt to the water. This brings out that extra flavor. So once it's boiling, go ahead and carefully drop your noodles in, slightly moving them around to break them apart, just in case any got stuck together. And then allow that to come back to a boil. And give them a light toss so they get all separated out and evenly cooked, because you don't want any big chunks of noodles in your pasta dish. So here they are boiling, and I'm just continuing to move them around so they don't get stuck together. They boil for about 3 minutes. Once they get done, I go ahead and drain them out, and then to the pot I'm going to make my sauce for my chighetti, or chicken spaghetti. So I put in Velveeta, all cubed up, and then I'm going to add in about 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to start letting that melt. I'm going to add in a can of cream of chicken. I don't normally like to use these kinds of condensed soup, but I need to go ahead and use them up, and I don't have any of my cream of everything dry mix ready made at this moment. So I went ahead and put that can of cream of chicken in. Now I'm also going to add in 2 pints of my canned shredded turkey, just because it's faster than having to cook chicken at the moment. And I'm going to add in some of my homemade rotel. Give it a good stir and let it continue to melt down, and add a little bit of salt and pepper. Mix it all up. Once it is almost melted down, you can go ahead and add your other ingredients and allow them to warm up together. I did not drain the turkey just because of the Velveeta. It gets so thick anyways. Excuse my chicks in the background here. But I put 2 pints of the turkey in there. And then I added about 1/2 quart of the rotel. So that would be about 1 pint, which would be about a can. I did strain some of the liquid off of it just because I didn't want my sauce to be too runny. We get all that mixed up and continue to warm up and melt together. Once it's all melted together, we go ahead and add in our noodles. You see that's where I drained the rotel out on top of the noodles there. But go ahead and add your noodles back in. And I did about 1/2 of my noodles and then stirred it and then put in the remaining half just so I had enough room to stir it in the pot. Now I did share this with a friend and we ate on this for a couple of days. It would be for this supper tonight and then one other day. So I do tend to cook a lot of a meal, so that way we can stretch it over, just because we've been so busy with the chickens and with the shed and all of that goodness that we tend to need leftovers in a quick pinch. So I'm going to get this all bowled up for us, get it all served out to everybody. Logan did not eat it. He said he does not like rotel, but if it didn't have noodles and turkey in it, he would definitely eat that with tortilla shells. So there is our bowled up chighetti. And this next meal is also a little revamp of leftovers. So I'm heating up my cast iron skillets there. I'm going to make a wild rice pilaf. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Pilaf. And then our canned turkey teriyaki. So the wild rice is actually leftover rice where I made a creamy chicken wild rice soup. And I'm not sure if you've seen that in another video of pantry meals. I'm not sure that I videoed it because I had to throw it together so quickly. But that is the leftovers from the wild rice chicken soup. I cleaned up my freezer and I found these 2 items. This is our peas and carrots that I've probably had for at least a year, and then some chopped onions. So I was like, well, I can throw this together and make a rice pilaf. As you can see, it's been in the freezer for a hot minute, so I need to get this used up. So I'm just going to saute these up for a few minutes. And on the back eye, Emma is going to dump out the turkey. Go ahead and get it warming up for me. So in that skillet, she went ahead and put 2 pints of the turkey in, and then I'm going to use these sauces to make like a teriyaki mixture for that chicken. I'm going to season the rice with a little bit of salt and attempt to get this block broken up. So to the turkey here, I'm going to add in a little bit of the liquid aminos, which is a soy sauce alternative or substitute. I just eyeball it, probably about 2 tablespoons, 2 or 3 tablespoons. The teriyaki sauce, I just had a little bit left over, so I'm just going to pour all of it in there. It was probably like a 1/4 cup. So that is one item that needs to be used up from the refrigerator. And then the last thing I'm going to add is some hoisin sauce, which has a little bit of a sweet flavor to it, and that's what I like to use in a lot of our Chinese dishes. So I'm just going to squirt probably about 2 tablespoons or so in it, and it does need that extra liquid to thin out a little bit. So I'm going to carefully stir this around and get that to cooking just so it flavors the meat. And I'm still trying to break up that big old chunk of peas and carrots. Finally got it done. I'm going to add just a little bit of oil to the pan for the rice. And then I'm just going to dump the rice in and let it go ahead and finish warming up as the vegetables continue to cook. Get that all mixed together. And the rice and everything is already cooked. I'm just letting it heat up together. And you can add whatever spices you want to it. There's the finished products. So getting this all plated up, this is the end of my pantry meals for this week. Now you'll notice that I do suppers on my pantry meals just because the kids are not here for breakfast. I don't eat breakfast. I'm here for lunch, and I'm the only one here for lunch. So I just do supper meals as a family meal. But here is the wild rice and turkey, and I hope you guys enjoyed our meals, and we will see you on the next one. Bye guys.